Well, the full game's out then. FM26 is here. It's not finished, is it? We're having a little chat. That's why I'm sat back relaxing in my chair. I've got my cup of coffee. We're going to have a little chat about my thoughts about the game. Obviously, I've done a lot of my thoughts about FM26 videos at this point, but none of them have actually come out since the game has fully released. And I think a lot of what I've done before was in the hope that we were on an alpha, we were on a beta. By the time we got to the full release of the game, I probably hoped the game might be finished and that a lot of the issues that we'd had in the beta would be gone. And as it is, at the time of recording, I'm recording this on lunchtime on the 5th of November. So the rumored, announced, I don't even know, the update that's supposed to be coming as part of the Steam beta program. So it won't be for everybody. It'll be an opt-in update as part of the Steam beta program, is due at some point today and might fix a lot of this stuff and make this entire video moot. But I'm going to make it anyway, because I've been sat here for the last hour tweeting about it, so I may as well make a video about it. So up front, do just want to clarify my general generic thoughts on FM26. For those of you who haven't seen any of the previous content, then I'm going to get into why I think we've reached this point and what a possible way forward will be, because I know there's been obviously a lot of very negative reviews and I get that people are unhappy, but I am going to try and look at this from a productive feedback, constructive feedback perspective of I've been playing this game for over 30 years. I love it and I want it to continue to exist and I want to continue playing it for another 30 years. So I don't want to just be part of a pylon that automatically leads to the game being, or that, not automatically, that eventually leads to the game being cancelled. That's not to say I want to invalidate anybody's opinions. If you don't like the game, by all means, get a refund, leave a negative review, say your piece. But for me, I am enjoying the game. I fully acknowledge it's not finished. It's very buggy. It's not finished. And I get that the UI is not for everybody. But as I've said at the start, it's not for everybody, but I think it might be for me because it favors the way that I play Football Manager. So I am looking at this from a perspective of I am quite enjoying it. I really like the updated match engine. I really like the new tactics stuff. And I like the fact that I can go from match to match quicker with less faffing around in between and less micromanaging all of the screens. I know some of you love to micromanage. So that my thoughts certainly lean more positive than negative on a scale of how good is the game. That being said, should also clarify, I am not for a second trying to claim that it's better than FM24 because it's not. It's obviously not as good as FM24. The new improved stuff is better, but there's more stuff that's not as good to balance that out. So it's not a step forward. I wasn't necessarily expecting a big leap forward better game this time from the moment they announced the Switch. I think I've tried to manage expectations within my own community that the first few years are going to be a buggy mess. We've talked about it being a buggy mess a lot, but I don't think we were quite ready for how much of a buggy mess it would be. And the most frustrating part, how unfinished and confused it seems to be, to the point where I'm not entirely sure what the correct path forward is for Sports Interactive and Football Manager. And there's going to be some very difficult conversations going on within Sports Interactive and within Sega, and some very tough decisions being made. And I don't know what the correct decisions are. And I know it's really easy on the internet to just say, oh, make a good game, make a finished game. But it's not as simple as that, because I think the issue we've got at the moment goes all the way back to the decision that they made 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was now, to switch the game to Unity, which, I mean, it did need to be done. The old engine was hanging on, bless it, and it wouldn't have lasted much longer. It wouldn't have survived. So it did need a change and it did need a refresh. But I think we got a little bit of an insight into this in the interview that Miles did with Jack just before the beta came out. If you haven't seen that, that's still worth a watch. That's Work the Space for anyone who doesn't know who Jack is. And if you don't know who Jack is, you have my undying respect. Thank you for watching me and not him. But Miles did do a video on Jack's channel, and he'd mentioned, the thing that I found most interesting was when he talked about how they were having to I think having to is the wrong word. They chose to separate Football Manager players into, I think it was 6 cohorts, was both the number and the terminology he used. I'm not rewatching the video. Jack's had one view out of me. But they basically split the Football Manager players into 6 groups who played the game different ways and wanted different things from the game, and set out to make a game to satisfy all 6 of those cohorts. And I think every problem that we've now got with the game stems back to that decision whenever it was made and whoever made it, because I think it's becoming pretty clear, having made a lot of FM26 content on PC, I've now made videos, at least one video on all of the other versions of the game as well. And depending on which version of the game you have historically enjoyed, your complaints seem to be different. A lot of PC players are complaining that the game was clearly made for console. Flip it around, a lot of console players are moaning that Sports Interactive only care about PC. The mobile players are jumping up and down saying, we exist too, and nobody's listening to them at all. But it is fascinating to see the PC lot absolutely convinced the game's been ruined because it's been made for console, and the console lot absolutely convinced the game's been ruined because it's been made for PC, and there doesn't seem to be any middle ground overlap. So in attempting to please everybody, to please all 6 of the cohorts, they've managed to create a Frankenstein's monster that doesn't please anybody. And that's a huge, huge problem for Sports Interactive, because it's not a problem that I think is easy to fix. They've tried and failed twice now to build a Football Manager game that pleases all 6 of their cohorts. The FM25 cancellation is failure number 1. FM26 clearly being unfinished and still confused into what it's even trying to be. That's failure number 2. So what do they do from here? Looking ahead at FM27, obviously there's going to be updates and patches and things to FM26 between now and then, but let's imagine that's not happening and just try and look ahead a year. What's the correct thing to do for them for FM27? And you can't just say make a good game that works, because it's not as simple as that. They're obviously trying to make a good game that works, and I think defining what that looks like is part of the problem. Because do they go again and try for a third time to create a game that pleases everybody, create a game that is equally as loved by PC players, console players, iPad players, by people who play really hardcore thousands of hours at a time, to people who play for 30 hours a year with their mates in a network game? How do you please all of those people? Do they try again to try and please all of them when they've already proven they don't know how to do that and they've failed at it twice? Because that sounds really hard and not likely to be successful. But the alternative is bin off what they've been working on for years and start again effectively from scratch, but not just from scratch and then rebuild multiple games. It won't just be build like with FM26. They've built one game and then tweaked it to work on different control methods effectively. But if they make the decision to make a PC game for the PC players and a console game for the console players and an iPad game for the iPad players and a mobile game for the mobile players, you know, what they were doing 5 years ago, if they decide to go down that route, which is probably the decision they should have made 5 years ago, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But if they decide to go down that route, they have to rebuild the entire game again in a year, which they've already proven they can't do, not just once, but 2, 3, 4 times over, so that they can release all of the versions. Because like it or not, PC players, they can't abandon console. It's where they make their most money. So if you want them to forget everything else and just focus on making a good PC game, I hate to tell you, if they decide to only make one game, it won't be the PC one that they prioritize, because they'll follow the money. So if your solution is, well, they should try and make one game, please one cohort by next year, they will just make a console game, because that's where they make their most money. And I don't want that. I want a PC game. It's the game I've played for the last 30 years. So what do? They can't. I mean, maybe they can. Maybe they can turn it around. Maybe they can pull it out of the bag. But based on what we've learned over the last couple of years, I'm not particularly confident. I don't think any of us are particularly confident that even if given another year, they get to the point where they have a perfect FM27 that makes everybody happy, because I don't know that it's possible. having seen the feedback that I've seen. But at the same time, if they decide to chuck away this however many years of work and start again from scratch, we're not going to have an FM27 at all because it won't be ready. So we'll miss another year. It'll come out in FM28. And even then, because they're having to develop 3 or 4 games all at the same time, how finished are they going to be? Are we then looking at it actually starting our 3, 4, 5 year clock again from here if they decide they made the wrong decision 5 years ago? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. And my worry, and my biggest worry, is I don't know that Sports Interactive know what the answer is. I don't know that Sega know what the answer is. I've seen people saying that people should be fired, people should be losing their jobs, Sports Interactive should be losing the license for the game. Sega should move it to a different developer. And I think all of that is very knee-jerk and it's a very football fan reaction. Oh, we're losing, let's change the manager and have that new manager bounce. Well, games development doesn't work like managing a football team, because if you move it to a different developer, you ain't getting a game next year, and possibly not the year after, at least not a good one, because Sports Interactive have been doing this for 30 years. They're the only developer that has ever really done a good football management game, and they couldn't do it in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. So what on earth makes you think someone could start from a static position with no previous experience and do a better job in a year? It just isn't going to happen. So that isn't the solution. Getting rid of the guy who's run the studio throughout dozens of really good Football Manager games. Is that really he's the only guy who's ever directed a good football management game. What makes you think anyone else out there could do it? I don't know. And if they could they do it in a year? Probably not. So yeah, I get that everyone's angry, everyone's upset, I think we can all agree, we all just want to have a fun football game that we'll enjoy playing. But I don't know what the route to get there is, and I don't think anybody else does. And I think that's the problem. I think we're a number of years down this path, and it's still not any clearer whether or not it's even the right path. And that is the terrifying thing. And that is what makes me worry for the future of the franchise. And hopefully smarter people than me can come up with the solution so that we can, as a first stop, get some fixes to the broken parts of FM26, finish this game, but at the same time be working on the next one, because the next one needs to be a step forward again. They can't just release a little iteration on FM26 and call it FM27 the way they usually do, because people didn't like FM26. So they need to have some massive leaps forward next year. And yeah, I don't know how realistic any of it is. And I don't know when we might again be playing a Football Manager game that everybody loves. And it's not a great situation to be in. But all that being said, I'll end with a little personal message regarding the channel, regarding the content. I'm not going anywhere. Like I say, I am enjoying playing Football Manager and managed to do daily content for a year when we didn't even have a game. You know, we got 2 years out of FM24. I can get a year's worth of content out of FM26, even in its current state. If you've watched the first couple of episodes of Non-League to Legend, you'll have seen the game is only part of it. The story that comes off the top of the game is what the content is all about. And I'm not going to let a clunky, unfinished game get between me and spinning a lovely yarn in a Football Manager series. So don't panic. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not particularly worried about the future. I'm certainly less worried now than I was a year ago when the game had been postponed. Do I wish the game was better? Yes. Do I wish the game was finished? Yes. Do I think the game is I mean, I don't need to go down this route again. I know there's going to be people telling me this is just me defending Sports Interactive again. I really don't think it is. I think this is quite scathing, but in a constructive way. There's no point. There is literally no benefit in me just coming out here and saying FM26 is rubbish, because what does that even achieve? You know, you've played it. You know whether you like it or not. You know, you don't need me to tell you whether or not to like it. Make your own mind up if you like it or not. I don't mind it. I see it's moving in the right direction. I think there's the skeleton of a good game in there, and hopefully Sports Interactive have a plan, and I'm willing to give them another go. I don't know if Sega are. I don't know if the games industry, the player base at large are. And I think that, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see what happens next. That's for sure. Right, I need to put my suit on and get back to making non-Nature Legend videos, but I didn't drink any of this coffee. It was basically just a prop. I promise you, there's a drink in there. It's just gone cold now.